Oh, so we'll
Rob,
be live.
sorry.
So we'll be streaming live too?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it makes things easier for me because then I don't have to go and edit the video.
Yeah. It's like forced no editing.
I can hear an echo. Awesome. Hey, everybody. As you can see, we have two legends on the screen today. Rajneesh, one of India's top ranked Kagglers, will be learning about his journey. What's his secret sauces? When is he becoming a grandmaster in the competition steer? We'll be asking him all of those questions. Thanks for joining us, Rajneesh.
Thank you for having me, Sanyam, and thanks a lot, Rob, as well, for joining us.
And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get to your journey. Welcome to Rob as well. Thanks for your time, Rob. I've been a huge fan of your Twitch. Is it channel? Is it
Yeah,
what's it
I
called?
think I don't know what they call it, channel or stream or something.
Page? Twitch profile, and
Yeah.
your YouTube channel. And I really wanted to promote your stuff as well. So I've been pestering Rob. Hey, please, let's collaborate on some video because I want to share your channel and I've been a fan of it. So thanks for
Thanks.
joining us, Rob.
Thanks for having me. You're a legend in the Kaggle data science content stuff, so I'm happy to learn from you.
That's not true, Rob. Everyone knows Rob is a 3x grandmaster and on his way to 4x soon, I believe. And Rajneesh is also on his way to a competitions grandmaster. So I'll get things started here. I first of all remind everyone this is linked under the like button. But if you are to click under that link, head over to Rob's channel, subscribe
Hey.
there, please. Subscribe to his channel right away. I don't care if you watch my videos or not, watch his stuff. It's absolutely incredible. All of these videos, just bookmark them, watch all of them.
Thanks for mentioning it. I just hit 2,000 subscribers today. It was fun.
Yeah, I subscribed from my other channel today morning.
Oh, nice. You might have been the 2,000th.
And also want to shout out your Twitch page, which is medallion stallion underscore. I don't know how you bring that crazy energy to the live streams, but I'd be curious to find out.
It's not
Um,
always that high energy, but I try my best.
so with that, I'm really curious. Last time we spoke, it was an amazing interview. It's one of the top watched interviews. But what led you into this content creation journey?
So I guess your channel definitely was an inspiration. I think that um with COVID and all of us being in our houses all day, it's been a little bit tough to have like a sense of community and to uh you know have people that share similar interests that you can just hang out and talk to. And I had been thinking about doing YouTube or maybe Twitch for a few years, and it seemed like a good time to jump into it. Every year I set my goals. I know, Siam, I've read your goals too. You put them out there every new year. So one of my goals was to start making some content, and part of that was streaming on Twitch, which I was just giving a try at first, and then I ended up really liking it because of the community feel around it. And then also trying to make YouTube videos every week just on small topics. And I've really liked it. I think one of my areas that I need to get better at in data science is being able to present and speak and be comfortable with all that stuff. So I see it as like a double win. I can give back to the community. Hopefully people enjoy it, the content, and can be part of the community. But then also, like, I'm selfishly getting something out of it because I get to practice presenting and talking and communicating what I'm doing.
I was just highlighting the notebook section. Rob is in the top 10 worldwide, so he's being too humble. Uh, Rajneesh, who's your favorite data science creator, and what feedback do you have for Rob and maybe me as well as what content do you look for, and how did you find Rob's channel?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So, I guess my favorite, I wouldn't say content creator, but somebody who I've been following for a long time, right, is Jeremy Howard. So, I started watching Fast AI way back in 2016. uh, the YouTube videos that they put out, right? And I really kind of like that technical content that Jeremy creates. Of course, different, it's a rather focused domain area that he caters to, right? But I really like his style of teaching, right? And I saw he's recently interviewed you, so kudos on that, Sanyam. Uh, but yeah, I really like the way Jeremy teaches, and I've also seen a bunch of videos on Rob's channel, data science medallion data science rather. He's doing a great job, I think. In fact, I've put some of the tips that is given to use in some of the projects that I'm doing right now, specifically around efficient computation, how do you store stuff efficiently, those kind of things. Uh, but yeah, I think both of you are doing great. Both of you, are on the right path. Of course, you'll learn, you'll grow as you talk to each other, as you talk to me, and amongst yourselves, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, no specific feedback. I don't think. I don't think I can create as good a content as you guys do, right? So, but yeah, whatever you guys put out, I'm really impressed by it. I like what both of you have done so far.
Uh,
Thanks.
Go ahead, Rob.
No, thanks. That's nice. You put him on the spot there, giving us both here and saying who's your favorite. But that's cool
Yeah.
that you mentioned Jeremy. I know that Fast AI community is a really tight knit one that Jeremy has built. So, and they did really well on this competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw in your live stream you were talking about that, and the box behind you is gone, so I assume it's been shipped to Dihua and
Ah.
Yeah, I used to have. So the winner of the competition that we launched got a 3080 Ti. I think I said that right. I would always say the wrong number on stream, but yeah, thanks to NVIDIA for providing that.
and that's the profile of the winner. But going back to the conversation, as you can see, I'm trying to mix match things and put people on
Yeah.
spot. And as long as we have Rajneesh's blessing, I hope we'll improve as creators. But Rob, going back to your point, when you set out this goal of creating content, what do you think is your end goal, and what's really missing in this Kaggle and data science community from your perspective?
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure it out. My goal at the beginning of this year was to just start making content and trying to make as varying and different content as possible. So if you look at my YouTube channel, it's kind of all over the place. I've made like short little snippet videos that on like how to work with pandas more efficiently, and then longer things where I've looked at data sets. And I'm just trying to see what people are interested in, because that's one of the things I really liked about Kaggle when I first started working with notebooks is you can make something and you get immediate feedback. If people like it, then they'll upvote it or comment on it. And kind of the same thing with content creation. You can tell some of the things that I thought people would like, they're my least popular videos, and some of the things that I didn't realize were going to be that popular became really popular. So, or popular by my standards. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's out there. There's already a lot of content around data science and machine learning. So finding my niche is still a process. I don't think I've landed on one thing. For live streams, it's really fun to just go through data sets and especially when a new competition launches, like one launched this week, then we can just kind of jump into it and start exploring the data on the live stream. So that's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I just kind of take the time on my live streams to work on stuff that I would be doing normally, but just try to share it and talk through it as I work on it.
How do you bring that crazy energy? Because I've seen you do so much crazy stuff. You have a wheel that's spinning. You have music that you're queuing. Maybe your music minor degree helps. I know I know your background because I studied it. And you're also like playing chess on there. You like doing all of these things. You're talking as you're going through it, were you like always conscious about growing in this direction, and where are you bringing that energy from?
I don't know. I kind of just am trying my best to be entertaining. One of the things so I first started streaming on Twitch chess, which I'm not very good at, but I play a lot of online chess. So mediocre chess against viewers. And that was because I was a little self-conscious about just making stuff and putting myself out there. So that's also why I made the Medallion Stallion username, because I was afraid to kind of link it to my personal name. But then as I started doing data science content, I realized that, people were interested in it, and definitely more interested than my really bad chess playing. But I think that one thing that I was worried about at the beginning is people say that live coding really isn't a good way to try to interact with the community, because at least for like a real software developer, you're working on a project that you have to really focus on, and anyone joining the stream doesn't really know what's going on. Then you have to explain what's going on, and there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. But I think with data science, it's a little bit different, because you can take a notebook project and work from the start to the end of the project, like an exploratory notebook, in a few hours. And anyone who's watching can quickly jump in and see what you're doing. And the nice thing I think about doing it on a Kaggle notebook, which I do some of the time, is then I can just make it public and share it with the chat. So after we're done, it's like, okay, we all worked on this together. Now you all can jump in and explore this data the same way that I did. So it's definitely like a different way of live coding than I think what you normally see on Twitch.
I was just highlighting this thread. I'm sure you remember, but Kaggle Legend CPMP was, and me as well. I'm sure Rajneesh is as well. We all are fascinated with the fact that you live code during Twitch and you keep it entertaining enough, which I know is like super hard to do. So it's an insanely hard task.
Yeah, that was a fun one. We were the metric to competitions, if they're not the standard metric, are always like the most important thing to figure out at the beginning. So I was actually happy that we got a working metric. And actually so that was like right when the competition launched, we were streaming. I was trying to code up the metric. I wasn't sure if I had it right. And then Chris also, he commented on it and said, "Oh, this is faster than the code I wrote, so I'm going to use it in my notebook as the metric." And that was very flattering, because he writes really good code. And him and CPMP both mentioned that. That was really nice of them.
Awesome. So this is concludes the section where I wanted to ask about Rob's content journey. Rajneesh, do you have any questions for Rob before we move on to your journey?
No, not question, but yeah, I'm really fascinated by people who can, do live coding and stuff. I mean, it's a incredibly challenging thing to do, right? So I don't know. There's a guy called George Holtz.
Yep.
What company does he run? I've forgotten the name.
Comma A.
Comma AI, right? So I've seen his lengthy, live coding round, and he sits for like 10 hours on at a stretch, right? So it's a very difficult thing to do. Uh, so yeah, kudos to Rob for nailing that. It's also interesting for people to see, right? Like, because when you give out a notebook to people as it is, right, they think there's not a lot of struggle that has gone into it, and they think that this person probably already knows what's happening, right? They don't see the struggle, the hours spent behind creating that notebook. But when you do a live coding round, they kind of get the intuition and the struggle behind it. And I think that's also very important to convey to software developers, data scientists, right? Who think if they don't get it right in the first instance, then they're probably not doing a good job at it. So probably it's good to dispel with that notation. and that's very well conveyed with the live coding rounds. So yeah, kudos to you, Rob,
Thanks.
for
Yeah.
doing that, for dispelling that notation. Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of searching Stack Overflow on streams and like just sitting there not knowing what to do next because it's not always so clear. But congratulations to you on all your accomplishments on Kaggle, especially with the PogChamp competition.
Thanks a lot
Uh,
for hosting that, Rob.
I'm trying to multitask and find everything as everyone speaks. So,
Yeah, there it
just
is.
wanted to highlight that Rajneesh, along with Nishay, who's there in the chat, both are absolute legends in the India Kaggle community. Rajneesh and Nishay are one of the top ranked Kagglers in India and also worldwide. You can see he's in top 500 worldwide. Uh, Rajneesh, you had your background in mechanical engineering and you started your journey similar to SRK in analytics, I believe, Kaggle Grandmaster SRK. So, what attracted you to this world and where in the process did you find Kaggle?
So yeah, so I come from a mechanical engineering background, right? And I started my career with a company in back when data science was not the popular notation. We used to call it analytics. But yeah, I started with analytics back in 2008, 2009. Back then, the use cases were a lot different than what we see now, especially on Kaggle, right? Back then, the use cases that we used to cater to were mostly around segmentation, generating insights from the data, that kind of stuff, right? Less predictive, more to do with generating insights and doing ad hoc analysis, that kind of thing. But then I did that for a couple of years, and then I got bored a little bit because it was fairly repetitive, not very interesting, right? So then somebody recommended me this book called Pattern Recognition and Machine Learning by Bishop. I read that book. It's a difficult book. It had a lot of math notation in it, right? But what that did for me is it helped me understand what kind of possibilities exist with algorithms and what kind of things you can probably do with algorithms, right? Probably the companies that I was working for, maybe they were not capturing the right data, so they didn't have the right use cases at that point. But fairly after that, I kind of jumped into machine learning full on when I switched a job. In fact, I worked on one of the hardest use cases that I've worked on till date, which is around optimization. And since then, and then a couple of years passed, I worked on big optimization use case. And then a couple of years passed, and then I kind of, saw Kaggle. And Kaggle was really, at the start, it was very intimidating for me because you had all these Kaggle legends. CPMP was there, and all of these people, right? And it was very intimidating for me to start with, at least. But then slowly and slowly, I saw the community was very kind. They they were kind enough to guide you, at times scold you if you were asking stupid questions as well. But uh, but yeah, all in all, they would guide you to the right places. They would guide you to the right set of resources, right? So over a period of time, if you struggle enough, at least at that point, right? If you struggled enough, you would. I probably got to a place where I felt comfortable doing predictive modeling work, right? And on the side, I was also devoting a lot of my personal time, reading up and doing a lot of courses here and there. But yeah, a lot of my learning came from Kaggle, following super users like CPMP, etc. And yeah, I mean, Kaggle was very helpful in my journey at the start, and also the Fast AI course in 2016 was very helpful as well. Wherein Jeremy kind of made it easy as possible for anyone to run a image classifier, right? So yeah, that was how I kind of jumped into Kaggle. And the thing with Kaggle is, if you do it for a reasonable amount of time, and if if you are into it, you'll get addicted very soon, and it's hard to kind of get rid of that addiction, right? So yeah, that's been my journey so far on Kaggle.
Uh, we spoke about this, Robert. Please feel free to jump in. There's this period of suck, right? Like as you were pointing out, where like things just don't work and it's like frustrating. What keeps both of you going? Because Rob, I know you're trying like subjectively one of the difficult categories for data sets, because it's, as I understand, it's really hard to get votes there, and same for you, Rajni. So like
Uh-huh.
what keeps you going when like it's you just want to give up, like you've done enough, you probably doesn't make sense to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that I'm sort of drawn to those long, droggy topics or things where it takes a while to actually find success. It is really frustrating, especially in competitions when there's always this point right when it launches and you're super excited and you have all these ideas and you think everything's going to work, and then about like 2 weeks into it, when you've tried all those ideas and nothing has
Nothing
worked,
worked.
and you just want to give up. I mean, that's really when you learn and you become better at things. It's like any sport, like or anything else you train for. There are times where it just sucks, and that's probably the moments where you're actually growing the most. So I try to just remind myself of that. Like with the data sets, I've still not quite cracked the code on how to make good popular data sets. I've made what I think are popular, but yeah, I haven't quite got the traction from any of them. So I just try to tell myself that I'm learning as a part of it, you know. Yeah, I guess that's how I get by is realizing that when it's tough and it seems like it's slow moving, that's actually times where you're growing the most.
Right.
Rajneesh would love to hear
Uh,
your answer as well.
yeah. So initially, when I was participating, when you get very desperate for medals, that's the time I think it sucks the most. When you are trying, you're spending time, and other people beat you to medals. But then, over a period of time, what I've understood is that is to follow the process, right? Forget about the medals. Uh, if you can crack a process that works, focus on the process rather than getting the medals, right? So there are this is kind of the mental model that I follow. So of course, there's an expectation if you're participating, if you're investing a lot of time, you want to get medals, of course, at the end, right? But I think if you stick to the process long enough, you might not win medals first time, second time, third time, but eventually, you will win something, right? And if you can tune that process over a period of n iterations, uh, as the process will get better, you will become even better Kagler, right? So I think all the successful Kaglers, like Rob, like yourself, right? Everyone has a
I'm
process that
not
they
I'm
follow.
not a successful Kagler yet.
You,
No.
you're a grandmaster too,
Yeah,
so
Grandmaster, congratulations.
yeah,
Thank you. But not
I think
in
it's just being
competitions.
that doesn't matter. You're a grandmaster, so let's not be too humble about it, right? But yeah, I mean, I think everyone has a has a process, right? And they look at other people, they fine tune their process, and the key there is to forget about the medals and just keep doing what you're doing. Of course, don't keep doing things that don't work. Tune the process, forget about the medals, and you'll probably and again, this is the advice that I give to people who ask me, what to do on Kaggle, how should I pursue it, is to kind of just have a mental model that works for you, stick to it, and don't get disappointed if you don't get medals. Medals will come eventually. Fine tune the process.
I was reading your solution while preparing, and I want to point out, I think this was one of the competitions where you just had 4 hours to
Yeah,
like find a solution, and you and your team in 4 hours won the competition. So it you also eventually get to that level. Of course, Rajneesh is super smart, so it also takes a lot of brains, but there's also this effort that goes behind it. And winning a competition in 4 hours, like even getting a baseline in there is like impossible for me. So
Yeah, that's super impressive. Those short time competitions are really tough. So that's a really big accomplishment.
Yeah, but again, it's 4 hours for everyone, So if you can just crack that little bit, you don't have to like get to the most optimal solution, but if you can just get a little bit better than everyone else, that suffices, right? So, but yeah, it was tough. 4 hours is a short amount of time, very short period of time. I'm glad I let's just say I'm glad we got it over with.
Not to downplay it, because you had legends like Abhishek Thakur and his team, and
Yeah,
Philip, former number one, Chishan, I think upcoming number one, all legends in that 4 hour, and you're beating all of these guys. Even I saw CPMP, I think they're, yep, CPMP, Jiba, Ahmed, all absolute legends. So it's not a small feat.
yeah. This was a very fun competition actually, and very satisfying as well.
Uh, so as you mentioned, you once you're going about learning all of these things and nailing down the process, since you are also in the Indian ecosystem, how have you found this helpful? And have you found this helpful at all on your resume? And how do you project this to employers? Because it's still hard here, somewhat, I feel.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the awareness about Kaggle, especially what Kaggle brings to the table, right? Or at least what a successful Kaggler brings to the table. That awareness is, I think, still a little bit lacking in the community, right? In the larger community. But you have, I think, that trend is also changing a lot, right? Because you have a lot of startups in India, AI startups, right? That are now specifically asking for Kaggle ranks, and they see how successful you've been on Kaggle. They not just Kaggle, they also look at your open source projects, GitHub, and so on, right? So there's a trend towards that, but I think larger legacy organizations, which have, let's say, 20,000 employees or whatever, they are the ones who are probably finding it a little hard to shift their perspective. But I think eventually everyone will come around, because Kaggle is here to stay, right? It's one area where everyone gathers, every data scientist gathers. So if you're not looking at it, you are probably missing out on a great resource which evaluates people on a wide variety of skills, right? Not just competitions, right? You have notebooks, you have data sets, right? You have discussions. So it's not just one dimension of things that you're looking at. You can look at people across a multitude of dimensions, right? And I mean, any company should look at it if they are not.
As someone who's literally made a career out of interviewing Kagglers, I have to agree. Um, Rob, any questions for Rajneesh before we move on to the section? I'm trying to keep both of you engaged. I'm trying to balance that. So please feel free to jump in
No.
any point.
No, your placement on a lot of these competitions is really impressive. I see that you've teamed with a number of people. Do you have like a crew that you roll with, or is it kind of just whoever is close to you in the leaderboard that you've teamed up with? And do you have any favorite?
No, I have a
Yeah.
yeah. So I have a preferred team. So if you see, at least my recent competitions, I generally try and team with a couple of people that I work with. So
Yeah.
namely Tanul, Nishchay, Shivam is not so active nowadays, but Tanul, Nishchay, and Ayushman. These are the three peoples that I generally tend to ask, which competition are you doing? Or if I'm thinking of joining one, I ask them if they have any thoughts on that. Yeah. So that's my preferred team. But yeah, I'm open to. The only difficulty that I face sometimes is the language and the time barriers. If I
Yeah.
join teams with people, far across, right? But yeah, that's the only challenge that I face. Other than that, and that's why I probably prefer teammates in the same time zone, right? You can collaborate during a daytime or whatever works for you. Uh, but yeah, those are my preferred teammates. But yeah, again,
Yeah, it's
open to.
great to work with people that you've worked with before, and kind of you're able
Yeah,
to jump into the next competition, not having to worry about how do I communicate with these people, and like
correct.
once you kind of get that comfort level as a team, it is like a sport. It's like you don't have to worry about uh, you know how the other person works. So you kind of know that naturally, and then you can just pick up and work on the competition and get right to work. So that's cool that you have kind of like a team of guys that you work with.
So Rajneesh, are you saying no to teaming up with Rob? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm not
No
at
one,
all.
no one
Not
wants
at
to
all.
team up with me these days. I don't have the time that I used to devote into competitions, but
I'm just pulling Rajneesh's leg. So no
Like I
offense to
said,
yeah.
anyone.
I can team up with anyone who wants to team up with me. I'm open to that.
So there's one more question for this section about Rajneesh's background. What led you to enrolling in a master's program after completing an undergrad? Basically, they're asking you had a nice gap between your two degrees. What led you to doing a
Hmm.
master's?
So so I'm doing a master's right now from Georgia Tech, right? And the main motivation there is to basically learn a little bit. Not, I mean, they are probably not going to teach me things that I already don't know about 80% of times. But yeah, my main motivation is to get a master's degree from a reasonable university.
Makes sense.
Because
Thanks.
look, because no matter how much we say degrees don't matter, if you look at the job market, people still ask for degrees, right? And I don't know, it could be virtue signaling, I don't know, but people ask for degrees. So better if you have a chance, better to get one rather than not wait and not do it and try your luck.
Thanks for that honest answer. So I assume Rob doesn't have any questions. So moving further on, in your Kaggle journey, what was the conscious effort like to improve constantly, either in on the leaderboard or in your process? Was there a conscious process, or was it just like nights of frustration where eventually things started to make sense?
Who
This
is
is for
this
you,
question for?
Rajneesh. For you,
Oh,
Rajneesh.
uh, yeah. So there are frustrating days and frustrating nights, right? But like I said, right? So if you have a process, right, and that process for me is very simple, right? My process is to do as many experiments as possible, and I know 95% of those experiments will fail. They will not give me a boost on the leaderboard or the CV, but I'm looking for those 5% of experiments, right? And
So sorry,
the
sorry.
more
Can we dig into that? Like,
Mhm.
knowing that, how do you like go into that and not get frustrated? Um,
Oh, so I think it's also a little bit of luck, right? Luck and uh, see, if you don't know about something, you don't know about something, right? I mean, you cannot get frustrated about things that you don't know about. You can, in hindsight, you can probably get frustrated about those when you look at CPMP's solution later on, right, or somebody else's, but you cannot get frustrated about it when you are working, right? So I try to focus on things that I can do during the course of the competition, right? And again, I try not to go down a single narrow path, right? So for example, uh, in the POC competition, right, that Rob just hosted, one of the things that uh, I did was to kind of have a bunch of 2D CNN models, and what I could have done is I could have like trained thou- not thousand, but let's say 50 of those, right? But they're not going to give me a good boost on the final leaderboard because they're not going to be diverse enough, right? So I need different ideas, right? Drastically different ideas. So that's what I generally look for: more experimentation with as diverse set of ideas as possible, knowing that 95% of those will fail, right? But I'm looking for those 5% that won't.
so,
But yeah, it is frustrating at times. I'll not deny that.
I'm.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I just totally agree with what you're saying. I think that um, that's been my experience too. Is early on when I was competing in competitions, I kind of had this mindset of, oh, that back in those days, it was like XG boost is always the best, like GBM. But then the more I started competing, I realized that exactly what you're saying about diverse solutions are better, because you if you have 100 models that are the same thing, you're not going to get the boost of 2 diverse models. So it just kind of reinforces this idea of exploring a lot of things that might fail, and then one of them might work, and that's going to be the thing that gives you an edge on the leaderboard. And that's probably a good philosophy just in life, to be diverse in what you're learning about. And I think that one of the things that has helped me deal with it is just expecting things not to work. So you go into it thinking everything's going to not work, and then when something does, then you feel really great. And you kind of grow that over time. And also, if something does work too well, then you become skeptical of, do I have a leak in my cross-validation or something? Because that's too good to be true. So these are all kind of good skills as a data scientist and just as a person to like build up this, endurance muscle where you can fight through things, even though you're not seeing big gains at the time.
Wanted to give a shout out to your video around K-fold cross validation, where you also share a bunch of tricks. So to people who want to become better at this, please watch this video. It's absolutely incredible.
Thanks.
Rob, I think you've hosted a competition in official capacity as well with Kaggle. After winning it, I believe the organizers invited you. So how is it different from hosting community competitions, or are you like copying the learnings there and bringing it over to all of us?
Yeah, no, I think that being a competitor has really helped me when I've been hosting competitions, both the official one for the helmet assignment for NFL, and then also these fun community competitions. You know what sort of tricks that people will use to gain an advantage that might not be helpful for the host. And it kind of gives you more insight into how to design a competition that'll actually be fun for people to participate in. So it's very different being on the other side of things. Just all the stress that goes on when you launch a competition and you want it to do well, and you're not sure, like the uncertainty of when you're a competitor of you don't know if your ideas are going to work is one thing, but the uncertainty of when you're hosting a competition and you don't know if someone's going to just like find a leak in what you've done and totally ruin the competition, or that maybe you didn't think through something, that's very stressful. But I've been fortunate enough so far to the competitions that I've run have gone relatively smoothly. It's also really fun being on the other side of things and actually seeing what's going on the private leaderboard, and seeing, like, just watching it more from the outside and seeing how people are approaching it and getting different scores and surpassing what you think is even possible is really fun.
What led you onto this train of you're already creating content for the community, why also host competitions? Because I know Rajneesh would agree with this. You're like following the thing we have in our fast A community, where like the host goes on and encourages everyone, really. Because I saw you were literally there in every notebook, every discussion post. You're like really encouraging everyone. So like why put in so much effort into that?
I think it's just well, with the community competitions, when they launched it last year, I just thought, well, this is a great way to kind of meet that goal of with my content creation stuff, to engage with the community, because there's no better way to learn, I think, than actually trying to solve a problem, and having a platform where anyone can just create a Kaggle competition is great now, because you can just all work on the same problem, and you just have to work out the problem beforehand, but then everyone who's competing kind of has the same idea in mind, and you can talk about it and have these kind of similar challenges with the data set. So I don't know, I just thought it seemed fun and it was worth a try, and it's been fun so far.
That's awesome to hear. So you hosted the music classification PogChamp series competition. Rajneesh, what led you to discovering this, and why did you sign up for this competition?
Uh, well, I usually scan for Kaggle competitions every now and then to see what's going on, right? I read notebooks and so on and so forth. Then I came across this competition hosted by Rob, and I was looking for something in slash audio, right? Just to fine tune my skills. I've not done a lot of signal processing, to be honest, and I wanted to see what's basically enhance my skill set, right? On that, this seemed like a very good competition to do so. So I jumped in. Uh, I also had a fairly robust pipeline set up from my G2Net competition, which was 9 months, a year ago, right? Which was not the same thing, but nonetheless signal processing, right? So uh, yeah, so I thought, why not try out some of the things that I learned from in that competition and see whether I can extend some of those ideas to music classification. So yeah, it was like a natural competition for me to kind of test my skills.
I thought your answer would be 3080 Ti.
And that too. I'll not lie.
Um, so when you saw this competition, how did you approach this? Did you just try your G2Net baseline, or what were your first thoughts as soon as you saw this data set? And I'm not going into the data because it's quite easy to understand for the audience. They were royalty free examples from different genres, and I think Rob had done some label changes there, but nothing too crazy. And there was some noise between the labels.
Yeah, so I basically started with a very, simple EDA of sorts. I already had the training baseline, right? I just wanted to see what the data looks like. So I did this in my local notebooks. I just took a few examples, plotted out the spectrograms, right? And the raw waveforms as well, to see what kind of data is it, if there are any specific patterns that I can find in particular classes, right? Fairly simple stuff, right? One thing I was specifically looking for was if there are any uh, blaring anomalies in the data. I couldn't find too many. There were a couple of mislabeled examples that Rob clarified in the discussion forums later on. But yeah, other than that, there was nothing to, just fairly baseline EDA stuff, right? And yeah, so that's generally my first step in any Kaggle competition, is to do a quick EDA, see if there are any things that stand out. If they don't, they don't. If they do, then you probably do something about them. But yeah.
Rob, did you see anything interesting from the competition that you didn't expect from the solutions, or was there anything you were expecting that didn't happen in the competition?
No, I really didn't have any expectations going into it. I'm not an expert in audio data. I have done some work with it, but I was just interested to see what the best approach would be. I had some guess that it would involve using mil spectrograms and using CNNs based on that. But it was interesting to see a lot of fast AI people at the top. I don't know if that was just because of the communities more involved, or if it was like something with the actual architecture that made them do a lot better. But yeah, it surpassed my expectations because I didn't really have any idea of how well people would be able to do on it. And I knew the data set was dirty. It was real life dirty. So the labels were based on just what the genre of music that they were uploaded to the royalty free website as. So some music doesn't really fit into a genre, so it might not actually sound like what you would think the genre would be. But I think that's part of the fun, is if the data set's too clean, then you can just it's not as challenging. But it was fun to see people battling it out on the leaderboard for sure.
Awesome. Rajni, so continuing with your solution, you mentioned you started with the baseline of creating MEL spectrograms, and in your final solution, you actually had 3 different data sets. So I'd love to start diving into a solution if you'd like to give us an overview.
Sure. So basically, my solution has 12 models, right? Of 2 different kinds, right? 8 and 4, I think. And what I did is at the start, I basically, so 12 models either on CQT or MEL spec datasets, right?
Sorry, what is CQT for people that don't know?
So CQT is another transformation like MEL spectrogram, right? I don't know the technicalities. Constant Q transform, right? But it's different from spectrograms, right? So I tried it in the G2net competition, and it was working fairly well in that, right? And like I said, I wanted to kind of try things that work there and see how they are doing in this competition. And the models that were trained on CQT, they were blending quite nicely, at least as far as the local CB was concerned, right? So at the start, one of the difficulties that I faced was that the dataset was huge, and I was doing a lot of these transformations on the fly in the neural network pipeline itself, right? So at the start, every epoch that I had took around 40 minutes to complete, which is not reasonable at all if you want to do quick experiments, right? So what I did is I basically transformed the data set, resampled it to 16K frequency, converted those to MEL spectrograms, saved it to the disk, and that kind of brought down the 45 minutes to about 5 minutes for an epoch, 5 or 4 minutes for an epoch. And when you have that kind of time per epoch, then you can do a lot of experiments, right? So I generally try and transition to a state where I can do a lot of experiments with minimal time spent. So so that was the first step, basically creating all of these data sets that I can store on the disk and use them in the neural network, right? And what I did is I created these data sets on varying configurations, right? So if you've created MEL spectrograms, there are 2 parameters, hop lengths and nmels. I created 3 variations of it. First, I started with 512 hop length and 128 nmels. And then I kind of came up with 2 others. And the reason,
how are you
again,
finding these numbers? Sorry, please continue. You were going to cover it. I interrupted. Sorry.
Yeah. So, the first about hop length, right? So I think generally, so think of hop length like the stride of a convolution filter, right? If your stride is too much, then you are going to miss out things in between, right? If your stride is too low, then you're going to be doing a lot of redundant computation, right? So I started with 512. It's something that works reasonably well in most cases, but then I wanted to kind of work on a slightly larger data set size as well. So I reduced it to 448. But I also tried 384. I've not put it there, but it was not giving me very good results. So I stopped at 448 because that turned out to be the optimal configuration for me. And the motivation is to kind of find a balance between, taking too much stride and taking too less of a stride as far as the CNN analogy goes. So I created those 3 versions of the data set as far as the MEL spectrograms are concerned. If you go back to the screen sharing, right. And so this was for the MEL spec. Then I created similar data sets for CQT or constant Q transform as well. It has similar parameters, similar intuition. So hop length, similar variations there. Number of bins, 64 and 84. Again, based on experimentation, I could not go higher than 84 because it was violating some Nyquist frequency thingy, which is basically, I think, the minimum frequency you need to sample. Something my professor taught me, I've forgotten it. But I couldn't go higher than 84 over there. So yeah, those are the two configurations, and they worked very well as far as the CV is concerned. I was getting reasonably good cross validation score. Uh, then the second step is to, of course, set up a good validation pipeline. My validation was based on five-fold, stratified five-fold mode ensemble. I also tried taking mean probabilities and mean logits and doing argmax over that. That wasn't giving me very good results or correspondence with the leaderboard, right? So yeah, that was a validation setup. As far as the framework, like I said, I already had a reasonably good pipeline, fast AI pipeline set up from G2Net competition. So I used it. I basically used it out of the box, just changed the data sets and some parameters. And there are a few tweaks that I did here and there into that pipeline. The first thing is basically to reduce the stride for all the first convolution layers for all the 2D CNN models. And this is, I think, something that Kishan came up with way back in Alaska competition, if I remember. Yeah, you can look it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was Kishan that came up with this. Well, I think it was Alaska.
I'll have to find that one. Please
Yeah,
continue.
yeah. No, I'm pretty sure about it. I think it was Alaska, wherein he said if you reduce the stride of the first convolution layer, which in most cases is 2,2, if you make it 1,1, uh, it basically means your models are getting a little larger. So you're compromising that complexity. You're increasing the complexity, but in return you get better performance, better accuracy, right? So that was one of the changes that in fact I think everyone who's working on 2D CNNs, everyone is doing this. Kishan has kind of made this a very popular thing.
I
I
think
found this.
Guancho also did that on. I remember in the Alaska competition reading his solution. The first place solution for that competition also did this changing of stride, which is a really novel thing to do. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
trying
it
to find
almost
everything
always
on the fly.
works. Yeah. So this almost always works, I think.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. I was just trying to highlight it on
Yeah,
the
I think
fly.
it's the second paragraph there. Second sentence.
Thanks for pointing that out. I also
Yeah.
saw it in the TensorFlow GBR Great Barrier Reef competition. I assume it stemmed from these older competitions, but someone had also used this there for video classification.
Yeah. So
Please continue. You were talking about slide in your solution.
sure. So yeah, that's something that that I did, that I changed. Then I added mix-up to the pipeline, and again, it comes kind of out of the box from FastAI. I tried to change the implementation a little bit based on what Theo Wheel did in, I think, last year's Bert Clef competition. He came up with a different variation of mix-up. I couldn't do it. In fact, I forgot about it. But yeah, vanilla mix-up was introduced. Then label smoothing was also there. If you check his, yeah,
Sure.
do you want to point it out?
No, I was just giving a shout out to their profile. So
Theo,
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Theo basically had a different implementation of mix-up. In mix-up, typically what you do is you mix things in a particular proportion, and then you want to predict things in that particular proportion, right? But Theo had a different implementation. I couldn't implement that here. So this is a vanilla mix-up, then vanilla label smoothing. Then one of the things that I've started doing since the last 8, 9, 10 months is basically noisy student training, right? And this is a very powerful technique, which is basically if you have trained a model, right, you get outputs from it. You can then retrain another model to predict two for two tasks, right? One is the original task. The second is to predict the probabilities from the first model, right? And this almost always works. It might screw up the CV thing, the CV might look a little weird to you, but on private LB it almost always works. I don't know why, but it just works. So and I do this in almost every competition. Basically, noisy student models. The key in training noisy student models is to kind of use simpler optimizers like Adam, right? Not complex. So here I used rangers for the original models. For noisy student models, I used Adam. Adam just works. Ranger might not. And then also to use a different scheduler for the noisy student models. So the normal models were trained on the fit flat cost schedule, and the noisy model was trained on fit one cycle. Okay, so Nisha says stop sharing our secrets. Yeah, I'll not go too much into this, but yeah, this is something that almost always works. Maybe you
Is
might have to tune it a little bit.
I'm curious, is
Sorry.
the noisy student, is that sort of analogous to with a tabular model just doing stacking? So basically you're taking the results of your first models and then training another one, or is it different? Is it actually within the
No,
architecture?
right. So in stacking, you're still predicting only one thing, right? But in noisy student, if you had, so in this case, right, the original target was to predict the genres, right?
Mm-hmm.
In noisy student, we introduce an auxiliary task, which is to predict whatever predictions came out the previous model, right? So predict the original task as well as the auxiliary task. So now the model has
Okay.
to kind of work extra hard to find a balance between the actual labels and what was predicted by this new or rather the previous model.
Ah, interesting.
I think if you look at these vision models, right? So TensorFlow, EfficientNet, NS models, and TIM, they kind of did something similar. I'm not sure if this was a paradigm they followed, but sounds to me they did something similar like this. So yeah, that was those were the things that worked. Uh, the list of things that did not work, I've intentionally kept the list shorter to kind of sound smarter. But there were a lot of things that did not work. Uh, Primarily, larger models didn't work for me. So I tried EfficientNet B3, B4. They didn't work, as well as B0, B1. Pseudo labels didn't work for me. And I tried transformers as well. And I tried transformers in a different way. Basically, in a way that was recommended by CPMP in, I think, his Birdclef write-up. He used transformers in a slightly different way. I tried doing that. That didn't work either for me. So I stopped there. And then my final solution was basically an ensemble of about 12 models trained on either CQT or MEL spec datasets. And I'm just happy to hold on to the top three position. Needless to say.
That's awesome. Congrats again on the third position. I hope this gets converted into a points competition and you end up with a gold. That could always happen from Kaggle team.
Rob, if you want to put in a word.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of power, but congratulations though. You did really good on it. And there's always some luck in the private leaderboard shakeup a little bit. So
Yeah,
the finishing strong was very impressive.
yeah. I'm still looking for that luck to go my way. But
yeah, I've been on the both sides of that in the past, so I know how it feels.
yeah. No, but thanks a lot.
Awesome. Any other questions around the solution, Rob, from you before we start wrapping up?
No, I think it was a great write-up. I had never heard of the that other transform that you use,
CQT.
CQT, yeah. So I'm gonna have to read up on that after this for sure.
Awesome. So I always try to wrap up with these similar questions. I will ask these to Rob, but Rob, please feel free to jump in if you have any others for Rajneesh. Rajneesh, your favorite war story from Kaggle? So your favorite Kaggle competition story or anything you remember?
So this would be the G2net story. So the story is that towards the end of the competition, we were out of ideas. We were at 14, 15, give or take, right? Not in the gold zone or just beyond the gold zone, probably. And we were out of ideas. We were frustrated. We were putting in a lot of effort. Nothing was working, right? And then and I was obviously working on a lot of experimentation, and I was able to come up with a different architecture that kind of gave us a very good boost. So specifically, we were trying a lot of 2D models, and I came up with a 1D model architecture. We have in fact written a paper about it as well. So yeah, that 1D CNN model on itself got could get a gold place, single model, and yeah, when that when the results of that model started coming about, it was a big aha moment for everyone, relief as well. Yeah, that's my favorite story, I think, from Kaggle, because I was in the thick of it. But yeah, there are many other stories that don't end as well as this one does.
Okay. This is usually the last question I ask. So, what's your best advice to noobs like myself or people just starting out on Kaggle?
You're not a noob, first of all, uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
my only advice is figure out a process and stick with it, right? uh, Tune it, of course. Don't keep banging your head if something that you're doing is not working. Talk to people. uh, they might not talk to you at the start, right? People are busy, people might not have time, but if you keep pursuing people with the right set of questions, right, they might respond. And keep tuning the process, follow the process. Forget the results. Results will come if they have, if they are meant to. They might not come, but the process is something that you can control. So stick with the process.
That's amazing advice. One question for Rob. Rob, any advice for me? For I can be selfish here. I'll be selfish.
I want advice from you. Let's turn it around. Yeah. Advice in general, or what were you thinking?
Sorry, for content stuff, because I understand now you've had the time to be in this role. So any advice
Oh
for me?
yeah.
Anything you'd like to see
Um,
from me?
just keep on doing what you're doing. I mean, I think you're doing a good job. One of the hardest parts for me is actually just doing it every week and not wanting to like take weeks off. And I know you've been really consistent, and it's, I think recently you've been changing jobs a bit. I'm sure it's been really busy. So I more just need recommendations from you or suggestions from you, because you're the expert in this field. I'm just
I don't
learning.
think that's true. I just put my GPUs at risk and put commit to the goal. That's what helps me nowadays.
Nice.
That's the amount of stake I need. Um, Again, being selfish, Rajneesh, anything from you that you'd like to see in chai time data science? Things you feel are not there.
No, I think again, I'm not sure if I'm qualified enough to give you recommendations, but
Again, sorry, to be honest,
I
I
think you're
don't
doing
ask
you're
this just
doing
to like
reasonably
hair
well,
praise.
right? I
I
mean, I love
really
your
want
content.
feedback from both of you. Sorry, sorry, I spoke over you.
Uh, so I again no, so this could be a little personal. I mean, preference, but I like coding stuff a lot. Uh, so uh, again, I like to hear stories as well, right? But if you can mix in a little bit of coding, mm, not necessarily live coding, but if you can walk through some Kaggle winning notebooks, that could be a good perspective as well, right? Uh, yeah, I mean, other than that, I think you've got everything covered. Your content is super nice, very informative. Uh, so yeah, probably just try and mix a little bit of technical stuff here and there, specifically code, right? And yeah, you'll have all the bases covered then.
We
Yeah.
have Rob's channel for that, so I don't need to do it. Just watch Rob's channel. Don't watch mine. Go
No.
there, subscribe there.
And the more the merrier, you know.
Yeah, there's always room for more. And I was thinking more when after you were saying that. I think that you do a great job of doing these interviews and like kind of building a community. I think you should definitely build off of that. And one thing I've been trying to do with my YouTube channel, at least, is varying the type of content I do and seeing what sticks. Yeah, even like shorter. It would be interesting to see you do like a short breakdown, like a 10-minute breakdown of a composition result, or even like I know some people watching an hour-long interview is they don't have all the free time, so maybe like little clips. I know I've seen like podcasts do short clips of highlight moments from interviews. So maybe that's something you could add to your content that people would gravitate towards.
No, thank you. I spoke over Rajneesh, but I wasn't trying to hear praise. I really have been asking everyone I interview, hey, like, what do you think is missing from here? Because this is not a big enough channel for Rajneesh or Rob's time. So like, you all come here because for some reason you like my stuff, and I try to be selfish during that time and just ask for advice because I assume you've watched a few of them. That's why I come here.
No, I absolutely love your content, Sanyam. I watch it. I mean, anytime I have some time, or if I want to watch data science stuff, I switch on to your channel.
No, thanks for that. But again, I didn't ask the questions just to hear that. I really wanted to hear both of your feedback. Rob, sorry, you were saying?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, you're doing great, and add to the type of diversity of content that you're doing. I think that you might catch on to some other types of content that people are interested in. There's so much you can do, and yeah, I'm just excited to see what you come out with this next year.
Thanks so much. And with that, I'll again wrap up by giving a shout out to both your profiles. So for anyone watching, it's not hard to search on Kaggle. Search for Rob Mulla or Rajneesh's username, which I won't butcher by pronouncing. From there, you can find Rajneesh's LinkedIn profile. You can connect with him there. And for Rob, you can connect with him on Twitter, LinkedIn, and on his profile, go. Is it called subscribing on Twitch?
Yeah, on Twitch it's called following, and then on YouTube it's subscribing. So it's a little
Do
confusing.
both of those things. Do both of those things for much better content. Awesome. Any other final words before we wrap up?
Thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it. And
Yeah, thanks for inviting us, Sanyam. This was very nice. I enjoyed the conversation a lot, and yeah, looking forward to more content from you and Rob as well.
No, thanks to both of you for your time, and thanks Rob, thanks Rajesh.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.